So there's an interesting parable that starts in Luke 16, and I'm sharing this from the Message Bible. And Jesus was talking to his disciples, and he said, there was once a rich man who had a manager. And he got reports that the manager was taking advantage of his position and running up a lot of personal expenses. So he called the manager in and he said, "What is this I'm hearing about you? I just want you to know you're fired, and I want a full accounting, a full audit of your books." Well, the manager was quite shocked and all of a sudden fearful about what was going to happen next. He couldn't figure out what to do. He's like, I don't have a job. I'm not strong enough to do a laboring job, which is my only other choices, and I'm too proud to be put into a position to beg. So he gave it some creative thought, and he came up with a plan that he believed when he was turned out and desperate would enliven many people in the community to support him, to take him in. So he went about putting his plan into place. One after the other, he called the people who were in debt to his master, and he said to the first one, "How much do you owe my master?" And he replied, 100 jugs of oil. He goes, "Here's what I'm going to do. Take your bills, sit down, and quickly write down 50. And then he brought the next person, and he says, "What do you owe?" And he said, "Well, I owe 100 sacks of wheat." And he said, "Take this bill, write in 80. And this went on several times, and here's the surprise of the story. The master heard about what his manager was doing, and he praised him for it. Why, might you ask? Because he had took it upon himself to look after himself. He went on to say that streetwise people are smarter in this regard than law-abiding citizens. This is Jesus talking to his disciples. And he said, they are on constant alert and always looking for the next angle, surviving by their wits. He then goes on to say, I want you to be smart in the same way, but for what is good and for what is right, using every adversary to stimulate your creative survival and to concentrate your attention on the bare essentials so that you can live, really live, and not just simply be complacent or following the prescribed good behavior. Have you heard that one before? When I read this, I was like surprised. I was like, this is one of his teachings. What Jesus was trying to tell people is that you have been given this creative life. And the creative life is there, and especially calls us to use it when we're up against obstacles, when we're faced with difficulties that we aren't sure how we can move through them, and the typically prescribed behavior may not be enough to get us there. So using what's in the way to be the way is to live, is to really live in this opportunity to tap into our own creative life for good. Over the past several weeks, we've been exploring how we can strengthen our muscles of attention, how we can become curious about this internal storyteller and how it affects not only our mind, but our bodies, our interactions, and even, if we start paying attention, our breath. The author Mary O'Malley invites us to consider that life is not a random series of events that are happening either because you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong. Rather, to begin to trust that life is putting you in the exact situation that's needed to bring up and to dispel what she calls the clouds. We might call them beliefs, or we might call them, our past experiences, to dispel all that keep you, that are that block to experiencing those difficulties in the natural flow of life, in the spaciousness that they offer to us, in the love and the light that they shine, and in the stillness that that place brings us to, which is our natural state of being. So here's a little way to try and remember this. Life is set up to bring up what has been bound up. Let's go to the next one. It's kind of long. So it can open up to be freed up so you can show up for life. Listen to that again. Life is set up. The way life operates is to bring up what has been bound up so that it can open up to be freed up so you can show up for life. That's the adventure that we get to be on. Most of us have been conditioned, and it is sort of our natural human conditioning, to resist everything that feels uncomfortable or painful. How many of you would agree that when something uncomfortable or painful shows up, our natural reaction is, how do I get out of this? How do I distract myself from it? How do I fix it? Yet the truth is being open to life means experiencing pain along with joy. It means that we get to experience it all. There's lots of things in life that can evoke discomfort and pain, whether it be an illness or a traffic jam or some rejection of what we've offered to people, or an irritation or a financial challenge or anxiety or loss or politics, family dynamics, the list goes on and on. And that discomfort and pain is often carried in the body as a certain tightness. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but this is part of what we're going to pay attention to this week. In fact, after listing all of those things, check in with your body right now and just see if you notice some area of tightness showing up, a little bit of discomfort. Maybe your heart's starting to beat a little bit faster with the thought of illness or financial challenges or politics. Maybe you feel a lump in your throat, a cramp in your neck. I carry all of mine right here. A heavy weight on your chest, or just maybe a sense of emptiness that shows up in your gut. Becoming a tightness detective can open up a doorway, a new way of understanding and seeing what's going on in your life, a way of unraveling those clouds that the storyteller has spun, and move us into an ability to more directly experience life as it's happening. It's important, I think, to understand that pain only leads to suffering when we resist it. I want you to hear that again. Pain only becomes suffering when we are unwilling to experience it and we resist it or hold on to it or play it over and over again in our minds. So here's an example. This has happened to me numerous times, probably to you too, more when I was a kid. But imagine that you just stubbed your toe on like a little concrete rise as you're walking along. It's some intense pain, at least for a few minutes, and then the pain subsides. If the storyteller in our own mind takes over that particular event, the suffering continues. Perhaps now we're starting to think, oh my God, I'm so clumsy, I can't believe I just did that, and we begin a tirade on ourselves. Or, usually the other one is, I can't believe that somebody hasn't fixed that sidewalk. I'm going to sue the company that, put that in my way and caused me to have this pain. And you go down that road. When we do that, the pain of that incident continues to live within us. And emotional pain is much more subtle and sometimes more difficult to detect unless we're really being willing to be present with it. Let's say, for example, that your boss at work is really upset with you because you didn't meet a deadline. In the past, you may have fallen into the story, oh, there it is again. I'm not smart enough. I'm lazy, whatever those stories that we tell ourselves about that particular event. Or you start projecting on to the boss. He's a horrible boss. He gives me unrealistic deadlines and then blames me when they don't. You can, I'm sure, fill in the rest. You can spin quite a story around it. You might react by becoming immobile like a deer in the headlights, or by beginning to argue with your boss. Either way, all of these reactions keep you triggered inside, and eventually it becomes stuck. It becomes a part of your ongoing understanding and perspective about that particular event. So this particular practice of being present in the moment is all about paying attention, especially paying attention in your body when it's going on, and what those stories are that are being spun in your mind by the storyteller. And you can then begin to see more clearly, oh, that's that tape that I run whenever anything like this happens. It's what I believe and react to whenever anything like this happens. And by just doing that, we are now bringing ourselves more present into the experience. It's not just about that event that happened. We're now beginning to say, oh, and when that happens, I went to this, and we, by being conscious of it, can begin to shift and to dispel and to move through it without staying stuck in it. It opens that doorway that allows us to shift our energy, the energy that normally we expended to react or to blame or to fix or to run away or whatever we could do that felt like it would begin to lessen the upset or the pain of that moment. And we can redirect that energy in a new way. So we're going to just have a little practice now as we move into our meditation time, just to allow us to see if we can notice, perhaps in ways we hadn't before, when certain events happen, how they show up in our body. And just our whole intention, too, is to pay attention to that storyteller, just to be aware of what the thoughts are when we bring a certain event to mind. So if you're willing, I would invite you just to get comfortable where you're at. Sometimes it's easier to close your eyes so that you can bring all of your attention inward for these next few minutes. As always, we try and begin this time of introspection by taking a deep breath or two, for the breath is always in the present moment. The breath can bring us to that place of here and now. And so as we just breathe in and then naturally let that breath go, we begin to just allow ourselves to observe what happens within our body and within our mind. That becoming our key focused attention on just simply observing. And to begin that process, I just invite you to perhaps bring a situation or an interaction that you wished would have just gone away into your mind. And as you begin to experience it in mind and feel the emotions that are attached with it, just notice if there's some place in your body that also tightens. Whether it's a knot in your stomach some labored breathing, a pain in your shoulders or neck. Just notice it. And then with intention, see if you can't take a breath and breathe right into that space, allowing that tension to just dissipate. Breathe again if you need to fully focus on letting it go. And notice if simply by that breath your thoughts have quieted down, or perhaps they're still running through that scenario, reliving it in mind. And take another breath and just allow that breath to simply breathe in to the clouds of that past. Simply, gently moving them out of the way so that you're right back present in the awareness of this moment. At any moment, we can be the observer of what is unfolding in our lives. We only need to remember and to empower that part of ourselves. Sometimes we can do it in the moment it's happening. Others, we may have to spend some time after the event to heal and to clear, to learn from this event and allow that clarity to open the flow of love and wisdom and light and energy and possibility and creativity that is always present in every moment when we are present to it. And as you take another deep breath and begin to bring your attention back to this time and space, aware once again of your body and of your breath, bringing yourself fully back into this time and space. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. So in my experience, there is a giant leap in our ability to be awake in the moment when we realize that our suffering doesn't come from what's happening in our lives. Our suffering comes from believing the stories about what is happening. I want you to hear that again. When we recognize that our suffering doesn't come from what's happening in our lives, it comes from what we're believing about what's happening in our lives. And how long we suffer is based on how long we want to hang out in that belief. So it's important to strengthen the muscle of our curiosity with everyday discomforts. You know, sometimes the best place isn't starting with those deep wounds from our past, but just to take on the everyday irritations, the everyday things that seem to show up in our lives. You're delayed in the line, somebody doesn't show up on time, whatever it might, the toilet breaks, or, all those things that show up. To start working with those, just to pay attention to what story am I telling myself about what's happening right now? Where is it showing up? in my body, and then begin to work through it. When you notice that tightening happening in your body or discover that your mind is swirling in painful thoughts, the author has a couple of ways that she suggests we can use to release and to reset, because that's really what this is about. It's not that these things aren't going to happen. It's about how long are we going to live in the story of them happening. So the first thing she suggests is as simple as just smiling. There's scientific evidence that shows how smiling can literally change the neural pathways in your brain, especially when you allow that smile to fill your whole body. Humor is one of the greatest things. Having a good friend who can laugh with you through all the challenges of life is one of the greatest healing gifts that you can have. And to be able to do that for yourself, sometimes I'll notice and I'll just go, yeah, there you are again. And you just smile about it, and it's amazing. I'm almost done, so you don't need to bring me water, Lori. Thank you. She's always so kind. I really am almost done. And in fact, if you can intentionally put a smile on your face and sort of feel that smile in the other parts of your body, many of your reactions will let go in that moment. It's almost more effective than just breathing, because the smile changes. There's like a chemistry involved when we're smiling and laughing. And then, as she suggests, and we did during that meditation, is just to take a moment to breathe into wherever that tightening is, to breathe into the storyteller, just to give it an opportunity to sort of reset back to neutral again. And when you can begin to master those everyday discomforts that show up, you can then move on to what she calls the great teachers. Those adversaries that invite us to step into life more fully with the light of our attention, whether it be an illness or a compulsion that we've developed, or finances or difficult relationships, whatever those things that seem to walk with us and challenge us as we navigate life. And ultimately, to be gentle and compassionate with yourself, because this transformation typically does not happen overnight. It is a practice that we do each and every day. It is a lifetime journey. To know that life is set up to bring up what has been bound up so that it can open up, to be freed up so that you can show up for life. And as you do, you will not only experience more peace in your life, you will become a channel of peace for the world. Well, it is our opportunity now to share of our financial good with this ministry. When the choir sings, we're going to do the traditional passing of the baskets. So when the baskets come by, we just ask you to share your gift, or you can just place your hand over it and feel that energy of abundance moving in and through, especially if you give electronically or put a little card in that signifies that that's the way you share with us. And there are some affirmations towards the back of the sanctuary. You can pick one of those up if you'd like one to bless you this week. So let us take what we offered today into our hands, into our hearts, and join and bless it together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother, God.
All right, so why don't we go ahead and stand up together. Let's join hands across this aisle and sing our peace song.
Was meant to be with God as our Father.
And as we go into this week, knowing that all that unfolds, whatever might seem in the way, is truly the way in which we can open up into greater life, into greater love, into greater awareness of who we have come here to be as divine beings. And we do this knowing our prayer for protection. We're going to do it as call and response. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Together, wherever we are, God is, and all is well. All right.